Welcome, Science 7, to our very last unit. A very cool but pretty big unit in planet Earth. We're on topic 2 today about rocks and the rock cycle. And we'll talk about the 3 categories of rocks, igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, and how they are formed. Check out the cool video links as you go through the PowerPoint. And we'll start with number 1, igneous, meaning fire rock, which is formed when lava or magma cools. And some of the types of rocks we'll see in the upcoming photos. Granite, pumice, and obsidian are examples. And when they're formed because of magma that's expelled out of the earth, then that would be extrusive rock. We call it magma when it's under the earth, hot molten magma. And when it is expelled out, it is then called lava. So when that lava goes out, it will either cool extremely quickly and have very fine grains and be almost like glass, like obsidian, or it might be expelled and be full of gas and be sort of puffy, full of gas bubbles when it goes out, and that's when it forms something called pumice, which has a lot of air pockets in it, and we'll see a picture of that coming up as well. Now, if it's a rock that forms inside the earth, it will be very hot under there, and that magma will have a time for those crystals to form, and so you get these coarse grained crystals like you see in granite, and it's a very common type of rock that I'm sure you have all seen. So that would be formed from intrusive rock, and so it would be formed under the earth, and then you get these bigger crystals. So granite, again, it cools slowly because it stays where it's really hot. Pumice is when there's gases in the rock and it gets these air bubbles, and it's actually a rock that can float because of that. And another kind is obsidian, which cools so fast when it's expelled that it looks like glass. So there's a few examples of your igneous rocks. And of course, there are very different looking igneous rocks because sometimes, just like you see, the crystals form at different rates and cool at different rates, but also there could be different elements in it. And so therefore it can be different for that reason as well. Sedimentary, our second kind of rock, is when sediments, little pieces of rocks and organic like soil particles are compacted, and when they compact, they often form these layers, and you get sort of a layering look. So sandstone, shale, slate, gypsum, those are all types of sedimentary rock. And there were a couple questions in your notes in case you don't have your book. This first one, compaction, how does that happen in a lake or an ocean? And that's when the heaviest pieces of sediment fall to the bottom first, and then smaller pieces will fall on top of that, the heavier ones, and so they kind of get layered that way, and the weight of upper layers crush the bottom layers, water on top crushes the bottom layers, and that's when they get compacted and like pressed down, as if you can imagine stomping on it. That's what compaction would be like. And then cementing is when minerals get dissolved that are inside of that, and they basically form like a natural cement. So you get a rock form that has all those compacted particles in it, and it's like a natural cement. These couple questions, if you don't have your book, limestone is things that is used for like statues and decorating buildings. making roads, making paper, and sandstone as well is used for building decorations. Okay, another last comment about sedimentary rocks is that it's often the type of rock that fossils form in, because it would be that originally live specimen that was covered by layers of sedimentary rock or layers of sediment and that turn into sedimentary rock. So we often find, like this picture here of a trilobite, we often find, or plants, we often find those in limestone. Okay, last kind of rock is metamorphic. And just like the word metamorphosize means to change physical form, this is when either igneous or sedimentary rock undergo heat and pressure and change how they look. So, for example, these sedimentary rocks, shale, can under heat and pressure turn into slate. The sedimentary rock limestone can turn into marble. So marble previously was limestone, kind of cool. And igneous rock like granite under heat and pressure can turn into gneiss, and it is pronounced nice. So these metamorphic rocks are all originally other kinds of rocks that just were put under a lot of heat and pressure. So looking at the rock cycle, this is something that naturally happens, and you have these couple of parts to fill in your picture of the rock cycle. But basically, if you look at the spot where it shows that sediment is compacting together, that's going to form sedimentary rock. Wherever you see heat and pressure forming a rock, you know that it's going to be metamorphic, because heat and pressure forms a metamorphic rock. But if a rock melts and turns into magma, like melted rock, and then cools, that will be forming an igneous rock. So you can see that in the green arrows here, any kind of rock can be eroded, like broken up into sediments. But when those sediments kind of compact to form a rock, we call it sedimentary rock. So really all three could have formed a sedimentary rock, and the igneous and sedimentary could have, under heat and pressure, formed a metamorphic rock, as we just saw, and it would be metamorphic that could form into igneous if it melted. So these are all just possible ways that one type of rock can, over many years, form a different kind of rock. It's pretty cool. All right, a little video on that. And to wrap up a little bit about soil is that sediments will form soil when they get mixed with organic material like twigs and bugs and leaves. And the word compost is any decaying material. A lot of people make a compost pile with kitchen like potato peels and eggshells and stuff. That's compost. And humus is not how you pronounce this. This is actually humus. Don't confuse it with the snack that you eat with some nacho chips, hummus. This is humus, and humus is the dark organic material in the soil. And you know that the darker the soil, the more rich it is full of nutrients. That's the humus in it. And the topsoil is often very rich with organic material because of the dead bits of plants and animals that have left their nutrients in the top. So a soil profile would look like this. You would have plants growing and forming this organic matter right underneath where the dead plants would lay. The dark area would be called topsoil, which is the one that you'd want in if you were growing a garden. Below that would be subsoil. Below that would be sort of chunks of rock and soil. It's called parent rock. And solid rock would be found below that, and that would be bedrock. It's not exactly in this picture, but that's where it would be. And the word leaching is when water comes like rain and leaches out the organic matter out of, or the topsoil, and all the very useful nutrients are washed out of it. That's called leaching. Okay, a little bit of review that you can head to